You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
I'm Drew Leiter.
And I'm Cletus Jacobs.
And welcome to episode 6 of the Legends of the DCU Podcast. Tonight we're talking Absolute Superman number 12 through 14, Absolute Wonder Woman 13 and 14, Absolute Batman 2025 Annual number 1, Absolute Evil number 1, and The Sandman Season 2 Episode 6, Family Blood. But before we get into that, let's talk some DC news. All right, Cletus, first up for DC news. Absolute Wonder Woman number 17 tops the Bleeding Cool weekly bestseller list this week, closely followed by Absolute Martian Manhunter, which sold 75% of Absolute Wonder Woman in reporting stores.
Drew, that's really, I know, Wonder Woman obviously clearly outsold it, but 75% is impressive for a Martian Manhunter book. I think that really speaks to the quality of the book. And like I've been talking about this a lot the last, 3 or 4 months, but man, the Absolute comics have been selling like hotcakes. The DC has really struck gold with the Absolute universe.
Yeah, they sure have. And I'm excited to dive into some of our books this week. If our audience hasn't noticed, we've been going back between the regular universe and the Absolute universe every other week. So hopefully they've enjoyed that. I know I have, and I know you have. So
yeah, it's been nice because I really look forward to the Absolute weeks, but it's given us a chance to catch up on some of the better books, in theory, at least, that is going on in the main continuity as well.
We really haven't come across an Absolute dud yet.
No, that's really shocking to me, to be honest with you, Drew. Like, you would think just one of them by just happenstance would end up not being that good, but it's all subjective, obviously. I'm sure there's some people that have not enjoyed some of these, but I have not. These have all been good.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed them as well. So I know sometime in the future we're going to be hitting some Superman again, and we know who's writing that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our last bit of DC news. Paramount Skydance posed to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery after Netflix bows out of the bidding war. Netflix says the WBD deal was no longer financially attractive, and Warner Brothers now says sale to Paramount will create tremendous value for their shareholders.
I don't know, man. True, I've got some concerns, to say the least. I have some personal qualms with one company acquiring as much media as Skydance Paramount is. But beyond that, Drew, just pragmatically speaking, for the outcome of DC, they are leveraged up to the gills to be able to buy this, Drew. They fundamentally don't actually have this kind of money. And you know what that means. It's going to be exactly what Discovery did when they acquired Warner Brothers, which is they gutted everything. They shelved movies that were already done so that they could write them off as a tax break. I think we're going to see that again, Drew, but worse. And we've talked about this. At some point in one of these acquisitions, because I'm sure this won't be the last acquisition, because again, fundamentally, Paramount can't afford this purchase. It's going to get sold off again, and at some point, DC is going to get acquired by somebody, or they're going to look at it and go, okay, well, we want the IP because we want to keep making Batman and Superman movies, but we don't really want to pay writers to make the comic books because why would we do that? So I don't know, Drew. Every time one of these acquisitions happens, I feel like we're spinning the roulette wheel, whether that's the time that you get the suit that says that.
Yeah, I don't look forward to these acquisitions, so it seems like they've been happening every few years.
Because these companies they're so desperate to show profit margins and growth, Drew, that the only way that you can do that is to acquire something else, right? And then, now we have all of Warner, we have HBO, so we can show growth in that quarter. And it's just, but they can't actually, Discovery couldn't afford the purchase, which is why they had to start gutting everything. Paramount's doing the same thing. Like there are certain things they really want, and I think there are other things that are sort of just along for the ride, Drew. And I don't know. I have a lot of concerns. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, who knows, you know, what the impact of this will be on some of these projects or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't know, Drew. It just the whole thing makes me nervous. I don't want to find out when one suit has the idea of, wait, why are we paying Scott Snyder how much money to write this comic? AI costs nothing.
Yeah, let's hope we don't get there.
I agree, Drew, but can you tell me seriously that you don't think that somebody's not going to bring that up?
Yeah, somebody will bring that up eventually. What I'm hoping is that somewhere along the line, one of these companies is coming along and start putting out original content. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I don't know. That doesn't sound right.
I know it doesn't sound right,
I
but
think they should just keep rebooting until they find a winner.
me personally, I'm getting tired of reboots all the time. I want some original content. I want something new and exciting. Somebody's going to come along sometime and have something original, and people are going to get excited about it. But for now, everybody's just rehashing things. So, all right. Well, that wraps up our DC news for this week. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll do our comics talk.
Enterprise Splaining is a podcast where we talk about Star Trek Enterprise. We are Trek experts.
You're aware that none of us have watched Enterprise before, right? We have whatever is the opposite of knowledge.
Oh, and it's not a normal rewatch podcast. Each week, only one of us watches the episode, and then we explain it to the others who haven't seen it.
That means you don't actually have to watch the episodes we're talking about because we'll explain it all for you.
Oh yeah, we would never actually make anyone watch Enterprise.
Enterprise Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you.
And we're back. Let's talk Absolute Superman number 12, 13, and 14. Ras Al Ghul launches a full-scale invasion of Kansas using the Lazarus Corps to pressure Superman into accepting the mantle of the Son of the Demon. Still shaken by Brainiac's psychological conditioning, Kal-El struggles to think clearly as memories slip and instincts fail him. Martha senses something deeply wrong, while Lois, Jimmy, and the people of Smallville brace for the coming war. What begins as a strategic strike quickly becomes a personal assault on everything Superman calls home. As the battle intensifies, Ras drives a kryptonite sword through Superman, triggering a vision of Krypton's Redlands, where Jor-El, Laura, and Krypto wait to welcome him home. Realizing he's dying, Kal-El hovers between life and death, while in the real world, Brainiac moves to kill his friends. Soul, corrupted beyond repair, sacrifices himself to stop Brainiac's command, pushing Superman into a devastating burst of heat vision. Ras survives, and the conflict spills into the tunnels beneath Smallville, where a Lazarus mecha captures Superman, until the townspeople stand between it and their hero. When Ras orders the peacemakers to slaughter civilians, Kal-El casts aside the crest of the Labor Guild, calling himself the Son of Nowhere and Nothing, and challenges Ras with a Sunstone blade. The peacemakers refuse to fire, and Superman's duel ends with him shattering Ras's kryptonite sword. Instead of killing Ras, Superman carries him to Organi town in Pakistan and hands him over to the survivors of the massacre Lazarus Corps committed there. In the aftermath, Lois and Jimmy broadcast expose the truth, and Lazarus Corps collapses, and Talia disappears. When Kal-El returns to Martha's retirement home, he learns she has passed away the day before, but the nurse gives him a box Martha left for him. Inside is a homemade blue suit bearing the Labor Guild crest and a note from Jonathan and Martha calling him their son and giving him the name Clark Kent.
I was pretty satisfied with this, Drew. I mean, it moves a little quick, as a lot of the Absolute Universe stories do. I don't know that I needed much more. I feel like we had gotten quite a bit with Ras already. I don't know that I needed this dragged out 5 or 6 issues.
Hey, I agree with you there. It was kind of cool seeing the town of Smallville rally around Superman and Soul protecting them, and, you know, everything that kind of happened here. It was a big event, even though it was only 3 issues.
Yeah, I agree. But like again, it covered a lot of ground, and in a similar vein to Absolute Batman has done the same thing. a lot of time gets covered too. That yes, we only get 3 issues, but there's a significant passage of time that you don't really get in a lot of continuity stories, Drew, for the most part, because everything is supposed to be relatively kind of frozen in time. It's one thing I've kind of enjoyed with these absolute stories is that there is significant passage of time in these, and it helps kind of reflect the overall growth of the world and universe because you feel like it is actually ongoing and not this sort of just snow globe world.
Yeah, the town of Smallville was under siege for quite a while. They were basically cut off from the rest of the world. I mean, without Jimmy and Lois broadcasting their broadcast, the rest of the world didn't know what was going on here. The other thing I'm excited about is to move on to something different. I don't really know where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, I agree, Drew. I am excited to see what they do. It felt to me like they were teasing that he's going to get a more traditional looking Superman costume. I mean, it's possible that that was just sort of a memento that he's going to have from Ma Kent, but I don't know that that's true, Drew. I think he might actually be adapting his suit to that, which would be kind of cool. I am ready to move on from Ras as the villain and get a new, like you said, like we've had these sort of mini arcs all sort of dealing with Ras, which has been fun. But like you said, I'm kind of excited to see where they go with something different. Are we, like, will Brainiac be involved again, or will we get Lex? Will we get somebody else that we like? Will there be an absolute Mongol or something? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways and routes that they can go.
Yeah, and the thing with this Superman is he doesn't have like a hometown. Sort of Smallville, but that's kind of small for him to stay there. He's kind of a world traveler, which we've seen since the beginning of this run. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes next, if he's going to go to Metropolis or somewhere else. I mean, he's been in hiding for quite a while, so it'll be interesting to see what he does next. And that's the great thing about these absolute titles. You don't know where they're going because the stories are wide open.
Yeah, I totally agree, Drew.
All right, well, let's move on to our next title for this week, Absolute Wonder Woman, number 13 and 14. Diana and Barbara's search into Amazon history is interrupted when a mysterious lightning-born entity begins appearing across the world, leaving both physical destruction and emotional turmoil in its wake. From Reno to Uruguay to the Dominican Republic, Diana tracks the creature's path, noticing that people's behavior shifts towards despair and aggression whenever it is near. Her pursuit continues through Mexico and Hawaii before she returns to the Huron, where Ida reveals a crucial pattern. Every appearance has occurred at ancient Amazon battle sites. Following this lead, Diana confronts the creature in Delphi and uncovers the truth. It is her opposite, a being of pure negativity that exists because she exists. Their clash escalates as the creature attempts to bind Diana with backward spoken magic. But Diana breaks free and retreats to the Huron, where she and her allies acknowledge that the world itself feels darker and more hopeless than it should. Seeking answers, Diana travels to Samothrace and offers her blood to commune with Gaia. The Earth Mother recognizes that Diana is right. Something fundamental in the world has been wrong for ages, a darkness she cannot name. Gaia destroys the creature and charges Diana with fighting this deeper darkness in her name. Returning to the Huron, Diana receives new intel from Steve about herself and other heroes, only to see a troubling report from Gotham. A burning sigil left at a crime scene unmistakably is the mark of Hecate. Really good story, Cletus. But one thing I was disappointed about is they teased a Zatanna, and that wasn't really Zatanna.
Isn't it though? I mean, it's a different version of her, but you're getting now the evil thing that she's fighting, I think, is a spell or curse made by Zatanna. I think the only time we actually see Zatanna is that sort of semi-dream sequence when Wonder Woman realizes that she's trying to magically bind her. Well, Wonder Woman, I don't think that's actually Zatanna. I think that's magic conjured up by Zatanna.
Okay, that's why I was a little confused then. So she magicked a negative Wonder Woman, basically.
Yeah, an opposite. I mean, I think, and again, I think they're doing an interesting kind of take on her where she, her magic has always been this sort of backwards talk stuff. And so in a sense, she's doing that, but in a literal sense with Diana, right? She's got this backwards magic, and so she makes a backwards Diana that is her complete opposite.
Okay, that makes more sense. It wasn't spelled out clearly, I didn't think, but I really liked the story. I thought these 2 issues were really good. and Diana trying to uncover the mystery. You've got Ida and the other women back at Diana's home trying to figuring out that this world is darker than it should be. It was all interesting, hinting at what we already know, that this is Darkseid's world. Really, I thought it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it.
I agree, Drew. Again, the Absolute Wonder Woman has been my favorite of these. Generally, it's just so good. The artwork, I think, really suits the style of story that they're telling. I love this more magical Wonder Woman because like we've talked about, they've long been trying to kind of make magic her kind of thing, and I think this is just like, if you're going to do that, I like this version of Wonder Woman. Like, it fits that magical vein a lot better than the regular Wonder Woman, who is obviously, an incredible character, don't get me wrong, right? But it sort of felt like they were shoehorning. It'd be like if you put Superman, you're like, yeah, Superman's magic now. You're like, how? Why though? That doesn't really fit his vibe. I felt like they were doing that with Wonder Woman sometimes with the Justice League Dark stuff. And this version, I just think fits that vision way better.
The choice they made to have Cersei be her mother worked perfectly,
I
thought,
agree.
with this series.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that carries throughout the entire run. I mean, everything she does, like the magic being such a heavy focus for her character makes sense when you realize that she's not being raised by Hippolyta, she's being raised by Cersei. Yeah, I agree, Drew. It's just, the story has just been so well told throughout. Like, everything ties into each other well. Her characterization, I think, remains very consistent across the book, where I don't feel like she starts acting, one way and then in a different way in a different scene. I feel like she's very consistently Diana throughout the whole thing.
What's going to be really interesting is when we get into the next story arc, because we're going to get our first crossover between heroes. Diana's going to be going to Gotham City. She's got to be meeting up with Batman.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if Zatanna will be involved in that story or not, because that was the sigil that she saw would imply magic again. I don't know. I'm curious, Drew, if we'll see Zatanna, or if Zatanna will take a back seat for this detour story, or what. But I got to say, Drew, like, I'm a little nervous about Zatanna being a villain, because I obviously quite like that character. But like, if you're going to do it, like, this has been a really cool way to explore that character.
Yeah, I agree with you. So it'll be interesting to find out what her nature is going to be. So we're going to be talking about another comic today that we have a hero that seems like a villain. So I'm excited to explore more of that. This is a darker world, so it wouldn't be surprising to find other heroes that have become villains in this world.
I agree.
All right, well, let's move on to our next title for this week, Absolute Batman 2025 Annual Number 1. The first story follows Bruce Wayne traveling to Slaughter Swamp to purchase black market weapons he intends to repurpose for his vigilante persona. What he finds instead is a homeless encampment under siege by local bullies who treat the unhoused like sport. Bruce tries to intervene as himself, no armor and no cowl, and is clubbed in the head. Later that night, Batman returns fully suited and terrifying, and he turns the table on his tormentors, stalking them through the swamp and dismantling their cruelty with calculated fear. In the second story, we get a group of frightened young men break into a wealthy father's home because they're convinced Batman is hunting them for a crime they've committed, and their panic only grows as they try and fail to hide from the inevitable. When Batman arrives, he tears through them with cold, controlled brutality, every strike delivered with precision, but beneath the violence runs a quieter thread focused on the homeowner's son, who slowly realizes he's crossed a line by dragging criminals into his father's house and begins to regret the choices that led him there. In the third story, young Bruce discovers what bats really are, their strange habits, the way people understand them, and the instinctive fear they stir, planting the first seeds of how he'll one day use that fear himself. And I got to tell you, Cletus, I'm very glad I didn't include this annual with the last time we reviewed Absolute Batman, because it wouldn't have fit.
No, I agree. It definitely stands alone.
I thought these stories were okay. I didn't think this was a must read. But if you want to...
That's sort of always the problem with the annuals, I think, Drew, is that they're there for industry purposes and kind of a holdover from a different era, but It's always notable when you and I are like, oh, this one's actually really good because it's so rare. Yeah, and I agree. These were fine. I don't think they were bad by any means, but I mean, fundamentally, I feel like the Absolute Universe has going for it are these really intricately woven stories that are unfolding relatively quickly, Drew, but they are kind of building on each other, and the little side detours are fine, but it doesn't jive. I didn't feel like with I felt like more like I was almost reading a normal Batman book.
And the thing about this originally came out in between some other one of the last Absolute Batman arc we were reading, and I was going to throw it on the schedule with it, and then I looked at it and I changed my mind. I was like, yeah, this doesn't really fit. We'll just do it separate. And I thought putting it in with this week's stuff was a decent fit, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
All right, well, let's move on to our last title for this week, Absolute Evil #1. Hawkman's 1951 testimony before HUAC sets the historic tone, a moment when a hard-right Carter Hall willingly unmasks and betrays fellow heroes he deemed subversive, reinforcing how the American establishment has long crushed anyone who challenged its power. In the present, Oliver Queen trains alone, confessing to Roy Harper that he intends to take down billionaire predator Jubal Slade himself. Disgusted by a world rotting from moral cancer, Oliver believes his wealth obligates him to act where institutions refuse, even if Roy won't join him. But Slade is already aware of Oliver's plans thanks to Hector Hammond, who dismisses Queen's crusade as a midlife crisis before stepping into a secret meeting with Veronica Cale, Elenore Thawne, Ras Al Ghul, and the Joker. An inner circle of elites who have quietly shaped history by eliminating early vigilantes like Wesley Dodd, Ted Grant, and Iron Monroe. Cale argues that the rise of modern superheroes, especially after the Gateway event, has disrupted the old order these power brokers maintained. She urges them to unite before heroes inspire real systematic change. Hammond scoffs, but Cale silences him by having Hawkman drop Oliver Queen's corpse onto the table. She insists that cooperation would give each of them power to achieve their goals effortlessly, though Thawne doubts such an alliance could function without devolving into competition. The Joker then unveils a discovery from his private physics lab, the Omega particle, which he claims proves the universe has a built-in moral gravity that keeps people like them at the top. Anyone who disrupts that hierarchy is injustice. He proposes they embrace this cosmic mandate and form an alliance dedicated to preserving their natural dominance, an alliance he names the Justice League. Watching from the Lazarus R&D facility, Brainiac explains to Mirror Master that this Justice League is useful only if its members counterbalance one another's ambitions. Hammond and Roz will check each other's egos. Thawne's skepticism will temper Cale's zeal, but the Joker remains a destabilizing force, so Brainiac concludes that the League needs one more member, someone he glimpsed in the mirror world. On a quiet farm, a contented man reflects on how he no longer envies anyone and has everything he wants. When his phone rings, he answers with cheerful confidence, introducing himself as Lex Luthor, ready to join the game.
I really like this issue, Drew, a lot. It was so good. I was upset it was a one shot. I could read an ongoing of this.
I know, it was so good. And I've got to tell you, I know you got it spoiled, but I was very surprised when they flopped Oliver Queen's corpse onto the table. Man, that was a moment.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because you just got introduced to him. You hear Hammond talking about him as if it's still a far off problem, and then it's bang. No, this problem has already been taken care of. It is a loud wake up call, again, reminding you that the absolute universe is a different world, right? And one like the Joker shows that where it is created to be in favor of evil, right? And that keep the ones in power in power. The thing I think I like about it the most, Drew, is how good it is at encapsulating the evil of that group. They are awful, right? But like in a way that's just like you just like it almost feels hopeless when you're reading that. You're like, how could heroes overcome this level of systematic, on a universal level, systematic evil? And I just thought it captured the true stakes of what this universe is and how strongly the odds are stacked against the heroes.
When I was reading this, I got the sense that this was a Legion of Doom that is a winning team instead of a losing team.
It's the Justice League. It's the Absolute Universe's Justice League. They even have the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, which it makes it really interesting because it shows they're the ones in power and the heroes are the ones they're wanting to stop, that need to be stopped. They are, well, we've seen some of them they have stopped. Some of them were bought, some of them were killed.
I loved the Joker's big problem with Batman is that he didn't take the money.
Yeah.
I really liked that, Drew. It was such a quiet, small moment, but it encapsulated everything, right? That has been, in some ways, Batman's biggest win up to that point is that he's the first hero that didn't take the money. Not even Bane, right? Even Bane takes the deal. It's a different type of deal than like Black Mask or what Black Cat does, but Bane takes the deal. Every person has taken the deal, and Batman did. Great scene.
Yeah, and it shows you what kind of hero he is too. One of the things that this comic pointed out was how different Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are compared to the heroes that came before them and failed.
Yeah.
And they're afraid. Just how in the regular universe, people are afraid of the villains, and the opposite, we're seeing the villains being afraid of the heroes and what it could mean if they succeed. I don't know. This is very good. The introduction of Lex Luthor at the end and him starting out as a good person.
Or at least seemingly so.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what this version of Lex Luthor looks like. Of course, they could fool us too, Cletus, and make Lex Luthor a hero here.
It wouldn't be the first time we've gotten. Obviously, I am excluding the Williamson Luthor because yuck. But it would not be the first time in other versions where, in a twisted world where some of the heroes are bad guys and vice versa, that Luthor is actually a hero. I'll be curious to see, Drew. My gut says that he will ultimately be, if he isn't actually bad, he'll be yet. I kind of feel like he'll still be yet another example of the absolute universe bending towards evil.
If that's the case, I'm sure we'll see him go up against Superman. This was really good, and like you, I'm eager for more of this Justice League. So it'll be interesting to see if they get a title or not. But one thing we know that's coming in the future is Absolute Green Arrow, and I'm very curious what that's going to look like. Like we said last week when we talked about it on DC News, is it going to be like a prequel of Oliver Queen before this point, or is it going to be somebody else?
I really think it's going to be somebody else. I could be wrong, Drew, but I have a very, very strong suspicion that it's either Roy or somebody beyond him. But I think that's the last we're going to see of Oliver Queen. I mean, we might get some flashbacks to him, but I don't know, Drew. I could be wrong, but my gut is telling me that the story is going to be moving forward, not backwards.
Now, one thing that would be interesting is if Roy does take up the mantle, is it going to be because Oliver was killed and that kind of drives him to become the Green Arrow? Because here we see he's not really interested. Could Oliver's death push him to become the Green Arrow? That might be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree.
After reading this issue, it really drives me more to get into more absolute stuff. I don't know. The absolute universe is just really exciting right now. And it's branching into territory we haven't seen before. Characters doing stuff we haven't seen before, and it's just exciting. I think that's why it's selling like hotcakes, is because it's new, it's different, and people are into it.
They're really telling some really strong stories too. We have to give all of the different creative teams some credit because it is new and exciting and different, but they're also good. And that's I think the key thing, Drew. And I know that sounds obvious, but like you could have I think the New 52 had some really interesting ideas and things that it did, but there were also a lot of clunker books. There were a lot of the opening wave of books that debuted that got canceled fairly quickly because they just kind of sucked. You know what I mean? And it is a vital part of this equation that not only do they have an extremely interesting premise with this absolute universe, not only have they had really good art direction, in my opinion, with a lot of these characters, but the stories that they're telling are actually good, right? And that's what's keeping people coming back. Like, I think a lot of the number ones were going to sell well no matter what. I think those were somewhat inevitable that those would be big hits. But the fact that the series themselves continue to sell strong, especially something, again, I have to emphasize, Drew, the fact that Absolute Martian Manhunter is selling well is a true sign of how strong this universe is, because that's just not a book that normally sells. There's a reason he rarely has an ongoing book. They deserve a ton of credit for this. And is why, Drew, I want to circle back to our news again too, and continue to bring this full circle. I'm nervous about all of these acquisitions because one of the ways in my opinion, DC has really turned a corner with the quality of their books is because they're paying the ones that are like the high level talent, right? Like they went out and got Jason Aaron is doing a great job on Absolute Superman. He has always been a major heavy hitter for Marvel. Drew, he did Thor, he's done a bunch of other books. He's been a big time Marvel writer. DC went and got him, lured him away, right? They got Jeff Lemire to come back. He's doing Flash. They got Scott Snyder to stop doing independent stuff and come back and do this universe, right? Like they're paying and going out and getting the top level talent, and it's paying off because we're getting books like this, Drew, that are incredibly well written. They're gorgeous to look at. It shows that if you actually invest in the talent, that you can get your return on investment. And I worry that somebody else is going to look at the salaries for some of these creators and go like, but what if we paid half of that?
Then you get Williamson.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, that wraps up our comic books talk for this week. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk to Sandman.
Everyone these days could use a little support, and your friends at the ESO Network are no different. With the ESO Network Patreon, the cool thing is when you help support us, it's you who will benefit. With 4 tiers starting for as little as 25 cents a week, you can listen to some of your favorite network podcasts early, hear exclusive content, maybe get some ESO swag, or even possibly take a shot at the geek seat. All you need to do is sign up at patreon.com/ESO Network.
And we're back. Let's talk the Sandman, Season 2, Episode 6, Family Blood. Witchcross, England, June 28, 1794. Dream visits Lady Joanna Constantine, reminding her that they met in a tavern 5 years ago, which, if memory serves, we saw in Season 1.
Yep.
Dream explains that something of some value has been stolen from him, and he can't involve himself in the matter because it is a family matter. He will give her anything in his power for her to retrieve it. Now, one thing that threw me off was how he pronounced, I want to say Constantine, but they're pronouncing it Constantine.
That is correct, Drew. That is actually how it's always been supposed to be pronounced. But I think a lot of it was always part of his character that he would emphasize that it was pronounced Constantine. And I think in the different adaptations of him, it just became commonplace for it to get mispronounced. And I think DC just sort of rolled with it.
All right. I'm going to try to pronounce it correctly, but if I pronounce it the other way, you know why. Paris, France. Lady Johanna Constantine is out walking late at night when she is stopped by 2 armed men. They ask to see what is in her bag. Constantine pulls a severed head from her bag, claiming that this man violated her little sister. She convinced the executioner to give her the head so she could take it back to her village and show it to her poor mother. She will spit in his face. Constantine then spits in the corpse's face and then laughs manically. The men steal the earring from the severed head. Back at her hotel room, Constantine apologizes to Orpheus and washes his ear. She explains that she is returning him to the island from which he was stolen from. So we get this opening sequence here where we don't see it happen, but Constantine, she retrieves Orpheus' head back from it being stolen. I like this opening sequence because it was kind of funny, but it felt to me like we missed something.
I kind of would have been interested in seeing that story too, Drew. I'm with you. I was a little bummed that we didn't get that.
Yeah, I was bummed by that too. But as you see the episode unfold, I guess you can kind of see why they didn't put it in there, because the focus was supposed to be more on Dream and him and his sister. But I would have liked to see that. The whole sequence with Constantine felt short to me.
I agree, Drew, and because I think especially it felt too short because while we do get a decent amount of screen time with the two of them after she's discovered the head and then ultimately is able to get out of France, I don't know that we see enough to have what is ultimately the payoff of that story, which is she chooses to spend what appears to be the rest of her days taking care of Orpheus, and didn't quite get enough of that relationship, Drew, for that to have the emotional payoff that I think it was supposed to have.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And I have to emphasize, Drew, I think a reason for that feels potentially a little clunky is I do think that's, again, I've not read Sandman, but I have vague brushes of what is supposed to happen. I'm pretty sure the stuff that they've done with Constantine has been mostly driven by the show. I think that's one of the few things that they haven't been particularly closely adapting, Drew, and I think it showed in this instance.
Yeah, I agree with you. In the morning, soldiers come pounding on Lady Constantine's door. They begin searching her room, looking for the severed head. Citizen Robespierre appears and knows her real name. He plans on destroying the head when he finds it. Citizen Robespierre gives Lady Constantine until tonight to produce the severed head, or she will be facing the guillotine herself. The soldiers take her away, and she is imprisoned in the dungeon at the Palace of Luxembourg. Dream visits Lady Constantine. While she is dreaming, she asks for his help. Dream states he cannot be seen to intervene in this matter. Dream asks how Orpheus is, and Lady Constantine replies that he is more alive than anyone she has met. He jokes at his own expense and is curious. He even offered to sing, but did not because he didn't want to draw attention to them. Lady Constantine added that he still wishes to die. In the morning, Citizen Robespierre visits Lady Constantine and tells her it came to him in a dream. The head is hidden with the other severed heads that are waiting for their journey to the lime pits. Citizen Robespierre has Lady Constantine taken to the dungeon cell where they are kept and asked to find it. Lady Constantine finds the head and then has Orpheus sing for Citizen Robespierre. He sings a song of freedom and liberty so powerful that even the dead join in to sing it. The song casts a spell on the listener such that Robespierre and his men stood and listened like statues. It is Lady Constantine's belief that Orpheus' song was heard throughout all of France for the next day. Robespierre's reign of terror was cut short by the fall of the weighted blade. Lady Constantine and Orpheus travel to a small uncharted island off the coast of Greece. They climb to the island's summit to where the sacred temple of Orpheus and the priests who guarded it were hidden from the world beneath a bank of clouds. Dream returns to Lady Constantine and asks for what she wants in return for rescuing Orpheus. Lady Constantine asks for more time with Orpheus. Later on, Dream and Delirium visit Orpheus at his temple. Before they enter, Delirium is worried that if Dream spills family blood, then he'll bring the kindly ones down on his head. Dream visits Orpheus and apologizes, stating he is not worthy of him. Orpheus knows something has changed and wants the story from the beginning. And I know Dream has been changing since season 1, and we are first introduced to him. But I like that the fact that he reconciled with his son here, basically.
I agree, Drew. I thought that was the best part of the episode was the multiple interactions that we see with Orpheus and particularly his interactions with his dad in both occasions. I thought that was the relationship kind of mending between the two. And in particular, like Morpheus says, where he's not worthy of his son, the fact that like you and I, especially I know I very much expected Orpheus to be quite bitter when they encountered each other next. And I know Morpheus expected that as well. And that's not what we got at all. Instead, we got a son that still unconditionally loved his father. It's a touching scene, Drew. And I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yes, and he seemed very excited to see his father, and I was happy for that too, because I expected him to be bitter also, and he wasn't. I don't know. I really like the actors they cast for Orpheus. I think he did a great job.
I agree. I think he was excellent. It's a shame. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot else out of that.
Yeah. Dream returns to Delirium with the location of their brother. He now owes Orpheus a boon. Dream reveals that destruction lives next door. He picked up the one place he knew Dream would not go. And I'm guessing by next door, they meant the island over.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of times where they zoom out, Drew, and you can literally see the two islands comparatively next to each other.
It's interesting that he chose to hide there because it felt like to me that destruction didn't expect anybody else to come looking for him besides Dream. I mean, why would he pick that place to hide?
Because he knows they aren't really going to look for him. I think is one, he knows that Dream isn't going to go anywhere near where his son is, accurately. And then two, accurately also, he knows that when he tells them not to look for him, that they're just going to take him for it, right? They're not going to follow. So I don't know. I thought there was some beauty in the simplicity of the plan, Drew, because it kind of makes sense, because how hard have any of them even tried looking for him until now?
Yeah, that's true. But I just thought it was interesting that the place he did hide was the last place Dream would look for him. Like he expected, if anybody was going to look for me, it was going to be Dream.
I think it was more so if anybody was going to look for me successfully, it would be Dream. That's how
Okay.
I interpreted it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right, because I don't think he's shocked that Delirium would look, but I think it's been made pretty clear that Delirium would not have found him on her own.
No, I agree with you on that. She seems to be kind of loopy.
Delirious, you might say.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. When Dream and Delirium find Destruction, Delirium runs and gives him a big hug. Destruction states she is as pretty as she ever was. He thinks she might have grown too. Destruction looks at Dream, stating he also looks different. Perhaps he has grown as well. Destruction invites them inside for dinner. He was expecting them. Destruction reveals that he set up mechanisms to warn him when people came looking, such as his scrying pool. Dream states that his mechanisms killed people he once called friends. Destruction points out that 300 years ago, Dream would have told him that they were simply mortal and would have died later had they not died then. Dream has indeed changed. Since no one is eating dinner, Destruction invites them back outside. Dream asks Destruction if he will return with them, but he answers no. Dream is surprised that Destruction has retained his gallery. Destruction doesn't know why, perhaps habit or sentiment. He will take his sword. He can't have it falling into the wrong hands. Delirium offers that Destruction can stay in her realm, but he refuses. He asks his dog Barnabas if he will stay with Delirium. He won't be able to survive where Destruction is going. Destruction reveals that he left his realm out of love for the human race. Destruction takes Dream and Delirium under the stars, hugs each goodbye. Destruction tells Dream that there is no one like him. He tells Delirium that he loves seeing her and whispers that she was always his favorite. Destruction dissipates and travels among the stars. The next day, Dream returns to Orpheus's temple because he owes him a boon. Before he does the deed, Dream kisses him on the forehead and then kills him. Dream returns to Delirium and Barnabas, telling them that their journey is at an end. All debts have been paid. Dream returns to his own realm, and he tells Lucienne that he is retiring to his quarters for the rest of the day. He does not wish to be disturbed. Tomorrow, he will resume his duties. Elsewhere, the Fates are having tea and read a fortune. A king will forsake his kingdom. Life and death will clash and fray, and the oldest battle begins once more. The Dream King killed his son, spilled family blood. They cut his thread. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen next episode.
Yeah, I am too, Drew. I have a feeling we're going to be getting into what is probably the final arc of the TV show. So I'm curious to see what that's going to look like and how they kind of fold everything together, because obviously the comic certainly keeps going beyond whatever this story is, or they're jumping ahead from other stuff to get towards that. I will admit, Drew, I don't know which it is, but I am curious to see how they choose to wrap the show up here, because obviously that will also have to be a departure from the comic. I really, really enjoyed the parts of this episode that had to deal with Orpheus, because I quite enjoyed that last episode. I personally, Drew, I know the bigger part of all of this has been the journey to find Destruction, and I found that to be quite underwhelming. I was not particularly satisfied with that. And when I thought the episode was going to end with him leaving again, and I was ready to kind of rip this episode apart on the podcast, and then we went back and kind of brought it full circle with Orpheus instead. And I enjoyed that. That was a good closure to that arc. And I was like, okay, all right, that stuff was good. But I don't know what was missing, but there was just not a lot there. They kind of didn't really say anything of substance, in my opinion, Drew. I know Destruction is getting into why he doesn't want to be the Lord of Destruction, right? And why he doesn't want to play a part in the destruction of humanity. movie. I get that. But beyond that, Drew, like they keep saying things back and forth to each other, but it's all like vague nothingness that it feels like they're trying to play coy about something. And the audience is not in on whatever that thing is. And so I just sat there and I'm like, we just spent like 10, 15 minutes and accomplished nothing. Like he pops up on screen. I personally didn't feel like anything of substance was really discussed. And then he leaves again. I was just like, what? All like this whole arc was for that? You gotta give me something.
I was disappointed in it too. And if you notice, my recap through that part of the story was quick because, like you
There's
said, there wasn't
nothing there.
there wasn't anything there. And I'm like, I'm not going into detail about all this stuff doesn't have anything to do with anything. I was disappointed in it too. I was fully expecting that they'd somehow talk Destruction into coming back because he played some important part in what he did. But we got a nothing burger.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed that he went off. I kind of liked his character.
I did too. I quite liked the actor that was playing him. I thought did a great job, Drew. But again, my frustration is that the entire interaction between the siblings is basically just one long conversation, right? Like there's nothing action-wise happening in those scenes. And I get that. I'm not expecting superhero action or anything like that. I totally get that, right? But fundamentally, it's one long conversation. So that conversation needs to be interesting. Right? Because it's the only thing that's going on. And again, I maintain they don't really say anything meaningful to each other. It's a lot of recap of what we already know as an audience, right? We already knew that Destruction did not want to have a hand in humanity destroying itself, right? We already knew that. So sure, he goes into a little bit more depth, but fundamentally they're covering ground we've already covered. We already knew that he's kind of vague about why he left and just sort of other things. But like that stays vague. They don't get into any depth on anything that we didn't already know. And even the stuff that we do know, they don't really add a whole lot of layers to that conversation either. It just sort of like they didn't even really get into the fact that, like we talked about, Drew, when we first see him, he's painting, right? He's cooking, he's creating. He is, instead of destruction, he is creating. He's doing the opposite of the thing that he is meant to do. And they didn't really touch on that at all. It just sort of was left unsaid. And I'm like, there's some interesting subtext and conversation there that I feel like we could have, and maybe challenging his siblings to do something other than what they were designated to be, right? And instead it's just sort of like, I didn't want to. Anyway, I'm leaving now. Here's my dog. Bye. We spent way too much time, Drew, for that to be the payoff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we'll see Destruction again or not, or if we'll see Orpheus again or not. That's one thing I was hoping to see is if Orpheus gets reunited with his love, because that's what he wanted to die for in the first place. So
yeah,
we don't know what happened to her now that she's not in hell anymore either.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, Drew, if we get any other payoff with Orpheus or not. I kind of feel like that might be done. I don't know. It'd be cool to see him again because, like you said, I really liked that actor, and that was by far the best part of this story arc was the Orpheus subplot. So I wouldn't be upset if we got more with him, but I suspect that his death is the final thing we get with him, which would make sense, to be clear. So yeah, I don't know.
One of the scenes I want to bring up real quick is when Morpheus goes back to his room and tries washing his hands. We see him having problems washing the blood off his hands.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Lady Macbeth, I think intentionally.
Yeah. Overall, this was a good episode, but it did have some lacking things. I would like to see some more things with Lady Constantine, and like you said, the destruction stuff didn't pay off like it should have.
I really think the Lady Constantine thing could have been its own episode, to be honest with you, Drew. It feels a little bit to me like they put two episodes together as one, and fine, I guess, but I feel like we could have really had a fully dedicated to seeing her acquire the head, right? Seeing the stuff that we did get, and then getting the payoff of her going back to the island on some fashion, right? Because it just felt like we got the fast forward version of it, which was still interesting because you could still see some of the interesting bits, but you're like, wait, I want more. Pause.
Yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity.
Especially a missed opportunity, Drew, because I was a little bummed. It's like, oh, that wasn't quite the context I was hoping to get with her. But it's like, oh, okay, but we're building up towards getting to destruction. And when that happened this episode, I'm like, okay, well, that's really why they wanted to get to it, right? Because this is the big meat of the story. We need to have time for this. And then we got what we got. And I was like, boy, we didn't need to do this at all. Give me more Lady Constantine. Give me more Orpheus. Something more than this.
Agree with you there. All right. Well, that wraps up our episode for this week. Do you have a shout out, Cletus?
Yeah, I wanted to not Forever Evil. That's the wrong book. The Absolute Evil book kind of reminded me, Drew, not in the same fashion of during the New 52, there was a tradition that basically they were celebrating the anniversaries. So like the first anniversary, they did these 0 issues, which were all like origins of different characters in the New 52. And another one, they did villain issues, and there would be potentially only one or more than one. And they would be like, if 24 was the last issue they did, it would be 24.1, 0.2, 0.3 or whatever. And it all got collected into an omnibus that has all of these New 52 origin stories or standalone stories of villains in kind of at the time, kind of retelling these villains in a more modern light. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, not all of them are good, but there are some really good ones in the omnibus. It made me think of the Absolute Evil made me think of that. And I would love to get more books with this group as the focus of the book. I don't know, Drew. Every once in a while we get obviously Suicide Squad or Secret Six that has, reformed villains or anti-heroes at the helm. I could do with a book or two where the main character is the bad guy, right? I don't have to root for the main character. I can be rooting against them while still looking at them through a villainous lens. I know we recently had that one Joker book. Although you could argue that although it was Joker's book, that Jim Gordon was still the main character of that book. I don't know. I do feel like that's an avenue that DC has sort of left open that they could go down.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue it. Jim Gordon was the main character of that book. So I agree with you there because it gives you an interesting perspective. And the villain doesn't have to win. You can still have him lose.
And that's what I'm saying is I feel like oftentimes if we get one of those, I feel like the writer feels the need to make you want to root for that character. And so ultimately, Black Adam has had a couple mini series and some others, but they always end up being, or Deathstroke, right? But they always end up being the heroes of the story. And it's okay. I would be interested in a book like this one, like we just read, where they are unequivocally evil, right? But they are the lens that the reader is seeing through. I think there's something really creatively interesting there where I don't have to root for the main character. I can be rooting against them while still telling a really interesting story. I don't know. I really think there's something there for DC to explore.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. All right. And for my shout out, I'm going to shout out about the Legends of the DCU Bat Chums Patreon because Cletus and I are reviewing the Jeff Johns Green Lantern series and having a blast at it. And you can check out those episodes on the Patreon. And then for Bat Chums, Mike Gordon and I are reviewing, right now we're reviewing Batman 1943 serial that they used to show in the movie theaters. So we're having a blast reviewing that. He's never seen it before, but I actually watched these back in the late 80s, early 90s because Batman 66 was not available on VHS at the time because the rights were tied up and then didn't even get released until 2016 or something like that. But back in the 80s, they did have the serials you could get on VHS, and I got them, and that was the Batman I could watch at the time. I couldn't even watch the Batman 66 reruns at that point because the 5 channels I got didn't have it on. So yes, I grew up without cable. I had 5 stations, Cletus. Not like today where you can just stream everything, which I'm pretty sure
have a choice.
I'm pretty sure Batman 66 is streaming somewhere. You can check out the Batman 1943 serials are on YouTube. So, and of course you can read the Jeff Johns stuff on the DC Infinite app if you have that, or if you have your own collection. But yeah, check that stuff out and listen to what we have to say about it on the Patreon. All right, if you'd like to comment on anything we've talked about tonight, you can reach us at our feedback line, 317-455-8411. Text us, leave us a message, or email us at legendsofthedcu@gmail.com. All right, Cletus, coming up next week, we are going to be reviewing Green Arrow, issues number 22 through 31, which is the rest of that run. The run actually ended in December, so we're going to be checking that out. And, of course, our next episode of The Sandman. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping for the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.